However, for the travel industry, a big sigh of relief. And for more on that, I've been speaking to the CEO of Advantage Travel Partnership, Julia Bue-Said. And I began by asking her for her reaction to tonight's announcement.
Today was actually very positive news. You know, it follows a week of some positive news. On Monday, we saw pre-departure tests removed from the restrictions travel coming into the UK. So today was really good, very positive reaction from the industry today, which is incredible.
And what does this mean for the travel industry?
What it really means is that we can really start to think about recovery. It's still very complex. You know, there are still tests involved. We still need to consider the protocols that are in place for the destinations that we want to travel to. But it does mean for the first time after 20 months, we can start to have a realistic attempt at restarting and recovering travel and actually reuniting families and getting businesses back on track.
How much is that, however, being done with a sense of trepidation?
It's really interesting. I think, you know, from a consumer point of view, you know, we have to work very hard at regaining consumer confidence now. You know, there's been a lot of changes that have taken place, and, you know, a lot of people haven't travelled during the pandemic, clearly, but also haven't travelled since Brexit. So there's quite a lot of different changes that we need to help navigate consumers through. But, you know, a lot of members that I represent, a lot of the travel trade, you know, have worked really hard to make sure they're in the best possible position to really try and reassure consumers and take them on that journey.
Talking of that position that the industry is the travel industry ready for all barriers to be removed? Is now the time?
Absolutely. You know, we absolutely are. As I say, you cannot go 20 months and not being able to properly trade without, you know, getting to a point where, you know, actually you feel that enough is enough, that we're now at a point where we've got 85% of the population vaccinated. Vaccination deployment is gaining pace across the globe now. So the industry is ready. You know, we hope consumers will be ready. And obviously, you know, what we're all trying and striving for is really to ensure that we can resume international travel safely. And we're absolutely, you know, convinced that we can do that.
You mentioned 80% of the public being vaccinated. How challenging is it for the industry to police the return, the PCR tests versus the lateral flow test, the day 2 versus day 8 for double jabbed versus unvaccinated? It must be quite a challenge for your industry to police this.
Yeah, I mean, it's not for the industry to police. I mean, when we're helping consumers to book their help requirements. It's really for us to be able to educate consumers in terms of what their requirements are. It's not the industry, you know, having to police this. What we have to absolutely make sure we're doing is giving consumers the right advice, the correct advice at the time of booking, and making sure, because changes are happening all the time, that they are aware that changes can happen, and just be in the best possible position to try and guide them as and when and if that does happen.
Yeah, talking of which, ministers still haven't announced a date for when the requirement to take day 2 PCR tests will end. How difficult a position does that put your industry in?
It's just really frustrating. I mean, you kind of feel, well, what's in the date? We know it's going to happen end of October. You know, what is it that requires such a long lead-in time? Why, you know, the supply is there. You know, supply for lateral flow tests on the private market are being bought already. They have been required for pre-departure tests, which many people have bought away with them. So it's just something else which you think, well, why? It's half term is looming. You know, from a leisure point of view, many families are, you know, really looking forward to their break. They've got this, you know, they've got this uncertainty in their mind in terms of what type of tests they're going to need to take. It would just be exceptionally helpful for the government to really, you know, help us understand what that date is going to be and confirm that as soon as possible.
The Department for Transport said the toughest restrictions are set to be dropped for popular winter sun destinations Monday at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Is it right to put that date and time ahead? Would it not just be easier to say as of now, straight away, those changes have been implemented?
I absolutely agree. I mean, at the end of the day, those countries have been on a red list for many months now, and we're still having to wait a few more days for that to happen. You know, also, I mean, it's all positive news, but when you sit back and you think that actually overnight, well, literally, in the next few days, 47 countries all of a sudden go from high risk to no risk or low risk. That's quite that's quite an achievement, really. But I agree. I mean, why we have to wait? Why there is that absolute deadline of Monday is the date that it restarts is really is another point that is very difficult to understand at times.
And how about these destinations themselves? Are they ready for a huge spike in British tourists?
Many of the destinations that have been on that list are the long-haul destinations. So typically this time of year, we wouldn't expect a huge influx of either inbound or outbound visitors to any of those. What we do know is a lot of destinations have really been eagerly anticipating and waiting for British travellers. So will they be ready? Absolutely, they will. The only point really to make is a lot of these destinations, or some of these destinations, their borders are closed to us. So whilst the UK government have, it's in their gift to, enable travellers to come to the UK from those destinations, it doesn't mean that that's reciprocated. The USA is a prime example. US citizens can travel here. We can't go to the US. So that's another area of complexity that, travellers really need to be cognizant of and think about when they're planning their trips.
It's pretty complicated for consumers, isn't it?
It's very complicated. It's very complicated for the industry, notwithstanding rules that are changing all the time. But you're having to try and marry up and align very different rules